Step one. Perfect. Okay, so I don't think we talked about it, did we?
I don't think so.
No, I think that got snapped away by Thanos in the video. So, so the reason that I do this is left, left, and these are not marked, but they're right, 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 right. So those are both right. So what happens is, now because we couldn't fit one of these and one of these on the foam sheet to cut out, because I mean that's a crazy shape. It looks like deer antlers.
Yeah.
But so we cut out two of the same on the foam because that's how we could get it to fit like this on the floor mat.
Yep.
So now the reason that marking these comes in handy is because obviously this is left and this is right. I'm trying to see how much.
Pretty good.
So this is left and this is right. But now you have these two pieces, which is also left and also right. But what we do with these is, say this was glued together, and you flip it over. Right, so here's the back. This is what we're trying to avoid, is the texture on the back. And also using two pieces makes it more rigid. So now that you have it flipped over, it still becomes right and left, just mirrored. So now you have two pieces of foam, they match, and both sides are flat. So you're getting rid of that texture. So now comes the fun part. To get these, let's just work with one side for now. So to get these to glue together, because this texture is almost like melted into the foam is already like heat sealed. It's already like sealed foam, there's no pores. So the glue, even the contact cement, will stick to itself, like the glue will stick to itself, but it won't stick to this pattern side. So the glue will peel off and stick to itself. So your seam edges won't always stick together. So there are ways around that. You can use super glue. Super glue will work fine, and hot glue will work fine. The reason that I don't like doing that, hot glue in particular will, first of all, it takes forever. You put it on hot, you put on like this much hot, and then you have to hold it while it cools.
Oh, yeah.
And you're holding it and holding it and holding it. And not only that, but then you get squeeze out, like it'll squeeze out. Now you have to go back through and clean off the glue, or you have to like heat it up and flatten it. It's a mess. It's not worth the time and energy for me. Super glue will work fine if you glue like small sections together. But what happens is, you see how that seam, even if I hold that together like really, really tight, you see how that seam is still bumpy?
Yeah.
So that'll always be there. And you'll always kind of see that seam. You'll always notice the seam. So the other option that I do a lot is I will sand just the edge on both sides. And this is one of those things where it takes time. It's not fun, but your end results are better. Your seam looks better, and it glues better, and it'll never come apart. So let's see. Let me put a the coarse. This is a coarse sand paper. I would never use this coarse on the smooth side because it's too much for the foam. I'm just going to do a little bit real quick to show you, and then I'll have you take over. There's a couple things about using this. You see how see how that spins this way?
Uh-huh.
So if it spins this way, I always try to have it go that way on the foam,
I see.
right? Because if it's spinning this way and you're trying to move it this way, it's gonna dig in. It's gonna dig into the foam. It's gonna have, you're gonna have resistance and it's gonna gouge.
I understand.
So always go this way. There are times where you have to, but the one thing also too is that you're just kind of sanding that a little bit. So honestly, even that is enough to glue. So that's like, you feel how smooth, like soft that is, versus that.
Yeah.
So that is like, you know the glue's gonna stick to that. And even that is enough to get rid of that like seam. Like you won't see the hard seam, it'll just be smooth and soft. You can get crazy. Turn it up a little bit. You can really bring this down. The other thing about like tips here, that is one time when you try to go towards the tip. You see how that just caught like that?
Yeah.
Try to like not have it do that by gently going off. And if you try to go back this way, it would really dig into it. So even that is enough for glue. And you can do it pretty quick. I think I was just kind of doing like. So like that. You can turn that up if you get comfortable with it, but you really don't need to be doing, too much. So you can see the difference with just this.
So are you only doing the outline or the entire?
I'm just doing the outline
Okay.
because this is where your glue has to be the strongest. You don't want your seam to split.
Right.
This, we will put glue on here. I'll show you another technique with just a piece of sandpaper for this, for the big part.
Okay.
And we will put glue on this to hold, but I'm not worried about this middle part separating. Even if it does, you're not really going to notice it. It won't separate because it has got nowhere to go because of your seams being tight.
I gotcha.
It's not going to open in the middle. It's not going to have like an air pocket,
Yeah.
So yeah, so just
Okay.
go around and do the outside. Even you don't have to do this. This part doesn't matter. Just these edges here.
Okay.
Because this will get glued flat, and you don't have to worry. We'll sand that later.
Okay.
Let me move my coffee so I don't have foam coffee. Sometimes that doesn't always kick on. There's the power. And this is variable. Sometimes if you turn it, it'll kick off. The cord is bad.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's like a dead man switch.
Yeah, basically.
So this way?
That way. That does help having that hook. There's so many times where I'll work on stuff like close to me.
Yeah.
It's out of frame. Doesn't have the benches moved.
Oh, fascinating.
Yeah, you give it a quick little sweep. Oh. All right. So now we only have to do that
3 more.
3 more times. And we'll see you in a bit. All right, so we got these all sanded smooth. The one thing that we will do, we sanded these edges, like I was saying, so that the seams don't pop off of each other. The one thing I will do is we will glue in this big section here, but what I like to do is, I don't even know what grit this is. It's a pretty coarse grit sandpaper. It's probably like 80. And I will just by hand kind of do this. So that you can see that takes off the. Oh, that's pretty dusty. Dusty. So that you can see the difference between the two. One's glossy, it doesn't really pick up too well. Yeah, so one's glossy, this one's smooth. So basically you're knocking down all of the glossy part so that the glue can get into the foam. Okay. All right, so what we're gonna do now that the backs are sanded, I'm going to go back to the original pattern, and I'm going to cut these handholds out. And the reason that we're doing that is because we think the foam right in here will be too like squishy.
If you're gonna use it for like constant.
Yeah, if you're gonna hold it. So we want to put a support rod in the bottom here so that this center grip has some support in it, so it's not just a piece of foam. So to do that, I want to know where these are going to be so that we can make a channel on the back for that to go in. Plus this gets us to the point too where we can just cut these out when we're ready.
Sure.
It is true, buddy. I'm not your buddy friend. Yeah, I only have a few same jokes in my Rolodex, you know. I'm not your guy, buddy. There's nothing funny than South Park making fun of Canadians in there. It's funny because they don't even know that the joke's a boot them. A boot. I really hate these words. Whoops. Alright, so there is our hand holes.
That's it?
Yeah. So, like that would probably be good for the back. Alright, so I'll have you glue these together. I'll show you how I glue. I glue like this. I just kind of dab it on a little bit. You can see like where it's wet. And I brush towards like the front. The reason that I brush towards the front is because like if this was the front and you were pushing down here, it like will pool and you'll get some on the front.
Oh.
but by doing this, it kind of flicks off before you get to the front.
Gotcha.
And it's not a big deal if you get it on the front. It's just you can see it through the paint later. So there's that, and then you do that side. Let this dry.
Did you get off the excess, or you?
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep, just a little bit.
Disgusting. Towards so this way towards the front.
Yes.
Can you see me?
Yeah. Yeah, I can see what you're doing over your head. There you go.
Idiot.
So yeah, we'll put 2 coats on since that's the new stuff.
Do you want me to do it again?
Joe, let it dry first.
Oh.
Yeah, so
Oh,
so
that's
see how this side is. See how that's kind of already dried.
Oh yeah.
So this side's already kind of drying up a little bit, where it's like shiny. It's still where it's wet, but it's kind of tacky to touch. So at this point, I would take. Let's just knock this whole thing over. I would put a second coat on here. I'm doing what I told you not to do. This whole series has been me explaining how to do it, and then I do the opposite.
Well, yeah, because you know the hand technique. You're telling an inexperienced person how to do it, right?
Never grind this way. That I'm doing this way.
I think it's literally the do as I say and not as I do.
Exactly. Exactly. So the second coat, now it'll take a little bit longer to dry because it's not soaking into the foam. It's drying on top of the glue that you put in. The first layer soaks in and the second layer sits on top. Wash it. Wash it.
So it's basically like real paint, right? Well, I should say like real outdoor paint.
Yeah, pretty much.
Is it okay if I have excess on the inside?
Yeah, you can just take your brush and just almost like mop it off,
Oh, I see.
just so it doesn't. It's not a big deal. It just takes a little bit to dry. So one trick you can do is if your heat gun has a low setting,
Mhm.
or even a hair dryer. This is like where a hair dryer.
Okay.
You're not trying to like heat it and cook it. You're just trying to have the air dry it a little bit.
Yeah. I can see it.
Yeah, you can. Every like bottle of contact cement tells you to put a coat on and let it sit for like 15-20 minutes. But in my experience, I've never waited that long. No, I just put that screw in because I can just picture knocking that off. The other way you can put contact cement on, which I might do here because you have it a little thick in spots, which doesn't matter. It's just again, it's just dry time. You can take a chunk of foam, like a piece that you're throwing out, and just. It's easier to do it when it's wet, obviously. Just kind of smooth it. You can do that too with. You can like use this as like a brush. You can dip this into the glue, and you just squeegee it over. Then it puts a real thin coat on, and it takes like no time at all to dry.
Cool.
That's a cool little technique. will have you glue, stick this together. The thing about foam is sometimes your thing doesn't like line up completely.
Mm-hmm.
Like, sometimes, you know, it'll be like if you tack this corner on, and by the time you get here, this might be like this.
Right.
You can.
Which kind of seems like it might be.
It might be, yeah, because our cuts are a little wonky, and our pattern's a little wonky. So you can kind of just squish the foam to match the corner, and that's kind of how I like doing it. The thing about gluing it like against the flat table, it helps get your seams straight. The only problem is because it's on the back side is on the table.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to glue the back seams perfectly flush. But because, like we were saying before, the foam is different thicknesses,
Mm-hmm.
this top seam might be like this. So I like to have the good side down that you're going to see, and then glue it together that way, and kind of. How I do it is I'll like tack the corner, and then slowly kind of push. I probably should do one and show you first, but
Well, I can do it, and then you can Bob Vila me.
above the. Oh, what are you doing there, man? Yeah. So tack the corner, and then just kind of use your hands. Yeah, just like that.
And then keep going.
Yep. And then when you get to like this point here,
Mhm.
once that's glued, squish these corners together and make sure those touch, and then you can go through and glue the middle if it needs to be pushed together more. Yeah, perfect. All right. So see how that seam is just a little higher there?
Yeah.
That's because the foam is a different thickness. But what that ensures is that your front seam here is not like that. So then what I do is I flip it over because it'll always be not like 100% glued. And I do like the thumb technique. This is such a weird shape to work with on the table because it is always touching one wall or the other. So I will kind of like pinch like that, and just make sure. I use the workbench like you were doing to make sure that it's flat, and then I'll pick it up and I'll start to like really push that seam together. Even like that, you can really you can really manhandle it at this point, you know.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't. I didn't want to do something and then.
Yeah, no, I know.
There's
And
probably
then-
not. How many irreversible things are there?
Maybe 2,
Okay.
and cutting is probably one of them.
I'm just saying.
Cutting off too much is always pretty, and even that it's not irreversible. I've had times where I've cut off a section that I wasn't supposed to, or I'm not paying attention to the pattern. I cut this off, and just glue it back together. It just makes a seam.
Yeah.
There are ways to get rid of it.
Cool.
So yeah, so then you can use like the thumb technique, and you're just kind of squishing it, almost like you're pinching a blackhead or something. You're just like, oh yeah, like that, and it's just really, really shoving it.
So the interesting thing is on camera, this looks like a gap,
It does.
but it is not in
It's
person.
not a gap. It does look like a gap on camera, doesn't it?
Yeah. But it's not
I think it's a shadow.
a shadow. Yeah. Something.
Yeah. Might be the ink too. I don't know.
Could be just a color correction, but it's not.
Yeah, it's
it
pretty-
looks good.
Okay. So now we can flip it. Okay. So now to add these support things, I will take my support thing and I will use a marker just to kind of mark where I want it.
And those are high and low enough so that they're not interfering with the handle.
Yeah, these are narrow enough. Yes, they should be. They should be fine. I will double check. Okay. Something as I did. So this top one is good. This bottom one is fine. I will bring it down just a little bit though. It would have covered, but just to be safe, I'll just knock it down a little bit. How I do these, you can grind them.
Oh, like with the Dremel?
Yeah,
Yeah.
can do that. So just real quickly, like. And the key is to, sorry.
No, you're fine. You're right. I just didn't.
The key with that is to do it on both sides, so that it's not, for this to be
Yeah.
right, for this to be inside the foam on one side, it's pretty close to being the same thickness as the foam. So you're going to put a channel on both sides of the foam so it sits inside. And the other way you can do this is you can just take your hobby knife.
You can take your happy knife.
Yep, and cut the edges here. And then doing a vertical cut, like that, not a vertical, almost like a 45. You can cut this way, and then going the other way, cut this way. And then you just pop this out. I didn't think it was supposed to start raining yet.
That's pretty late.
Is it raining hard?
No, just sprinkling, but it's coming. Well, I mean, you can read it. I mean, it's not. It's like in between sprinkle and normal rain.
That's what sounds loud. So you can do it that way. This knife isn't really sharp. And the reason I don't like doing that is because it's easy to cut through.
Mm-hmm.
This little one goes here. And the other one is right here. So now the hard part of that is to figure out where these line up on the other side. So sometimes what I will do is
Make like a little
yeah, I'll use like I'll put like
well, okay.
I'll put Sharpie there. It might work. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And then do like the sandwich technique. And push on it. And it kind of puts a indent. So I can kind of see that there's a indent there.
I was kind of thinking you could you have marked here?
Oh yeah, you probably could. So line it up here.
Yeah.
Get your seam lined and then mark the side of your foam.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then carry that over. Is it coming in?
Yeah. Pretty good actually.
Is it really? Oh wow.
It's loud.
See that?
Yeah, there's like
Oh my. Now, toss it over the road.
Yes. It's funny. Funny. It's so funny. Yes, we'll do that side this way. And the sanding bit is wide enough
Oh, yeah.
where you're gonna cover it anyway. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I'll do is I'll mark how long that is. So I'll mark like in the middle where the seam is. And then I'll just make sure that carry that through.
Cool beans.
Cool beans. Cool beans. And then yeah, let's just do it. All right, so we got these on both sides, these grooves for our handles here. This is the glue I was talking about. So, I'm gonna use a little bit here. See if this works better. I think we have enough time to get this glued together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, for the day and also for the camera.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay, so now that those are in place, we're gonna glue both sides, our seams, and we're gonna slap this together. So,
Will you have to run super glue on the top side of those dowels?
you can, right before you glue it together, you can do that, but just the compression alone
Okay, cool.
will be fine enough for those. You can actually put contact cement on these, and then on these, and that'll be perfect. So I'll glue this one. If you want to glue the seam and maybe just a little bit in here,
Okay.
and that should be good. I will glue these over here. I'll use the old stuff in the brush. Brush. Should we record all that or no? All the gluing?
No,
Should we just stop it and then?
we're going to glue this.
We're gonna glue it. All right, so we got this glued. Both sides are glued. So now comes the delicate part of gluing everything together. I will glue this side. I'll leave this side for you.
Okay.
So what I like to do is like I'm gonna pick like this
I see.
peak here, and I'm gonna hold this right here so it's away. As soon as this touches, it's hard to get it unstuck.
I see, okay.
So what I'm trying to do is just get this corner touched here. So now that's down. And normally if I was doing this whole thing, I would stick this whole bottom piece together first. Just because that seems to be a little bit easier. So now I will line up this part with the seam. Make sure those dowels go in to their groove, which they are. So now I'm kind of lining these cuts up. They don't have to be perfect because we're gonna sand them later. But I'm just trying to get the edge to touch and to line up. Can you hold this up so it doesn't touch? So now, same thing with the spike here. I'm just lining up the edge first, all the way around. Make sure that the peak touch seems like they're both kind of different lengths. The back is kind of, see how the back is like this? And that's okay. I mean, you could try to mess with that and try to pull it. But if you pull it too much, it's going to change the shape. So we'll just sand that smooth later. I'm not putting like a ton of pressure on this yet. I'm just getting it so the edges are lined up. And then after they're lined up, and I'm happy with the way they're lined up, then I will go through and I will push down the whole seam.
Right.
Just to make sure they're really glued together. Okay, now you can do that side. It already touched. Oh God, it's touching. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll stick a piece of paper so that you don't have to worry about that touching till you're ready. Perfect. Yeah, so that actually lined up pretty good. I was gonna say if that was short, you could kind of pull it a little bit to get it, you know. This is Klingon Manifest. Is it just grabbing too much?
It kind of grabbed awkwardly, but it might be just the
Is it just cut
shape
wrong?
of it.
Yeah. Yeah, so like you're saying this seam is lined up. This one's off a little bit, so that's probably a cut or pattern issue. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
So we can shape that later. As long as that curve, because that one lines up, that one looks good.
It's a little over.
Yeah, that's all right. Smash it. Sometimes what I do too is I'll take like a chunk of PVC pipe that I have just laying
Yeah,
around.
like a rolling pin.
Yeah, exactly. Just like Papa Klingon, he's like.
Yeah. Just like a
Just like a war for daddy.
His name's Moog.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just like a Papa Moog used to make. Or I would be doing is intersplicing all these Worf quotes every time he says something Klingon, you come in. Nice house. Good tea.
So there you go. Even see how even after the rolling pin technique, it still has a couple little spots where
Yeah.
you gotta stick it down. So that is it for the basic like cutting and gluing. I mean, this is ready for a little bit of cutting and shaping on these. Cut these out.
Yeah. Yeah, so it already kind of
Yeah, it looks
good size.
it looks about the right size.
Yeah. It's doing good.
Do his elbow pose.
Look at this.
Yeah, that looks good.
Yes. I don't have the handle for it, but yeah, it's there. It doesn't feel too small, it doesn't feel too big. It feels
Yeah.
good size.
Good. Cool. So all we got to do after this is we got to sand the edges down, get the shaping good, cut the holes out, sand those to make sure they're good.
Well,
and then do the wrapping, and then we'll seal it and paint it. Sweet.